Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Coach's Corner. Yes, I am here. Your host is Nate here. How you do? Hope you guys are doing well, by the way. Of course, every week we have good old Coach's Corner, and we're joined by Coach Wilson himself. Coach, first off, how you doing? We're recording this a bit earlier than usual, but this will be a more consistent schedule. Hopefully, you guys will be seeing this on Thursday, but we record the day before. So we hope you guys have had a good Wednesday. And for you specifically, Coach, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man. In my home state of Florida, good
Ooh.
to handle some business, see some family. It has been a crazy week, but I'm feeling good, man. And last weekend, I was at a little bar restaurant and I had four college football games on. And I was there for about 4.5 hours and
Ooh.
I just consumed a lot of ball. I feel like I'm definitely up to speed as far as identifying the top teams in college football, along with seeing some trends regarding personnel and style of play in the
Ooh.
NFL, and some numbers that are revealing some shifts in the way the game is being played. So, all in all, feel pretty good. And I'm very excited to talk ball with you, man. So, let's rock and roll.
Let's do it, because we got a lot of topics for you guys today to that we'll cover. A couple of new segments that we'll be revealing as well. So without further ado, let's get started. First topic, first order of business. The Buffaloes of Colorado. They faced off against Colorado State this past weekend, and after last year's debacle where they barely escaped, they got the job done like they should have this past weekend. Shadeur Sanders was great. Travis Hunter once again did an outstanding job for the Buffaloes as they took care of business against their in-state rivals. Uh, I thought it was going to be close, Coach. I ain't gonna lie to you, but 28-9 was the final score in that one. And those two kids that we talked about from Colorado State, honestly, the way they got whooped, I like to see that. They should have transferred when they got the chance, but hey, they want to stay because they care about winning. Okay, sure, but overall, all jokes aside, Coach, what are your thoughts on this game? What did you like about the Buffaloes? What you didn't like? What you think they should improve on? As they are now 2-1 on the season.
Well, for one, I'm incredibly irritated with how the media is handling just sports as a whole these days. Everyone panicking upon one game early in the season. Yeah, Colorado lost the previous week to Nebraska. Colorado probably a little overhyped. But when we look at it on paper, they have far more talent than Colorado State. Yeah, it was a close game last year, but I don't know what gave anyone any potential indicators that Colorado State was a threat to Colorado. I thought Colorado's roster was much improved from what it was last year. Colorado State didn't appear to make any improvements. Colorado State has no reputation at all outside of the fact that they played Colorado in a game beginning of last season that had a lot of public attention. That's it. Colorado State was just outmatched from the jump. There were far more athletes on the Buffalo side, and it looked like they just didn't really belong on the field. And they had an arrogance about them. The way that quarterback handled himself on that interview, that was ridiculous. The fact that they were coming out there playing cover one and cover zero as if they have the firepower at the skill positions of Colorado. It's like they were just delusional. There were a lot of analysts saying, "Oh, Colorado might lose." That was just ridiculous. I don't know why anyone thought that. Now, this doesn't mean that Colorado is about to go on a run. I still think
Mhm.
they have their flaws, but I never thought that Colorado State was going to present any threat. And what happened in that game is exactly what I anticipated. So, looking at the numbers a little bit here, Colorado had 109 yards rushing, which was good. It was improved. They got the game going a little bit, so that was good to see. And they used about four different ball carriers. Travis Hunter had 13 catches for 100 yards and two touchdowns. And we're going to look at some of what he did on the field as I'm really impressed with the kid. He continues to take it up a level. Shadeur Sanders threw for 310, four touchdowns, no picks. Very impressive game. Sat back in the pocket, was just dropping dimes all over the place. And LeJontay Wester finally got going as I thought he would with 5 catches for 80 yards and two touchdowns. A couple other things that stood out. The defense had 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. It was a strip inside the red zone at that. It was a big play in a critical time. DJ McKinney Their cornerback number 8 is starting to emerge as a legitimate playmaker for them. The Colorado Buffaloes are sitting in cover 1 and cover 0 all day. They're sending some blitzes. And that is showing me that there's a style of play and a blueprint for them in order to win games. And what that is obviously, they like to come out in 10 personnel, 4 receivers on the field. They got 4 really good receivers that I believe can all play on Sundays. That being the first thing. They're not going to ever run for 200 yards on the ground, and that's fine. But if we can go anywhere between 70 to 130 and get 3 to 4 yards in first down situations, they need to use a little bit more motion pre-snap. Travis Hunter was doing some pre-snap jet motion and some orbit motion. They got to do more of that and just present the threat of him within the run game. But running the ball, okay. Being able to score fast and get up on their opponents so that when their opponents are trailing, they can begin man blitzing and putting some pressure on opposing offenses to have to make quick reads and just beat them athlete to athlete. And that's Colorado's real advantage, is the fact that they're really athletic at the skill positions. So all things considered, I believe they are starting to form an identity. I'm still not crazy about them. And I think that the score should have been a little bit worse than relative to how they really dominated them on the field. They should have scored a couple more points.
Mm-hmm.
All things considered, I believe that it was a step in the right direction for the Colorado Buffaloes. And Travis Hunter is absolutely emerging as my favorite for the Heisman Trophy. That's what I feel about last week's game.
That's a big one.
Tough, man.
Yeah. Look, Travis Hunter, we talked about it before, Coach. He has the potential to be the number 1 pick in next year's draft. And it's not just because of his versatility on offense and defense. It's just the fact that he's a good player. His character is outstanding. This is no knock on Shadeur Sanders, who let's face it, Coach, I think me and you kind of still have questions, as well as everyone else in the college football world have questions about his character, which was evident by his post-game interaction with Fowler Nicolosi.
Your thoughts on that, real quick? I want to know your thoughts on that.
I understand that Colorado State's quarterback was talking trash. I understand that, but at the same time, I do feel like, from a maturity standpoint, that Shadeur should have been the bigger man, just to shake his hand. I mean, the fact that Fowler Nicolosi talked all that crap, but he still went over there to shake Shadeur's hand, at least that showed that, hey, I was wrong. I talked trash and it didn't work out. Let me shake your hands. Called a good game. Shadeur didn't accept that. That kind of bothered me, Coach. I didn't like to see that from him. And yeah, I just didn't like that overall. I just felt like his character was already questioned before, based off the offensive line comments he made the week before, and he just continues to make it worse for himself, in my opinion. But what about your thoughts on that, Coach?
I don't think Shadeur gives a damn what the media thinks. And what people have to understand is that he's rich. And so if Shadeur Sanders falls in the draft, he's just going to go to a better team. Like, let's be realistic here. People want to overplay. Oh, I don't know what scouts think. Let's look at how Caleb Williams is doing right now, or how Bryce Young is doing. Okay. These NFL teams are going to take the best available quarterback, and some of the throws Shadeur Sanders is making, they're not over here stressing about character issues. It's way overplayed. It's just a story because it gives people things to talk about. What is alarming is this. Colorado has been up by 2 possessions at the end of 2 games, and as opposed to running the clock out, Shadeur Sanders has thrown the ball downfield for no reason, just being an arrogant asshole, trying to pad up stats and just add to the margin of victory, which is evident in what he's doing. He's taking shots at the end of games. That is alarming. It's like, oh, this guy's, okay, he's trying to make a point here.
Yeah.
I thought that was alarming, and the fact that Coach Prime is letting him do that. Also, at the end of the game, in the press conference, all 5 linemen were standing behind him.
Yeah, kind of like kind of like an apology for last week.
Yeah, and it showed a sense of awareness in regards to how he behaved. But all things considered, that Colorado State quarterback, I didn't like his demeanor one bit. And if you're going to be a gamer, I think this is just the culture of how these kids operate. I like that. I like Shadeur's edge. I just think there's a time and place. The O-lineman thing, absolutely not. But like we talked about Caleb Williams week 1, how Caleb Williams is unapologetically himself. Shadeur Sanders has similar elements in regards to coming from a stable upbringing and not a kid that is happy to be there and is going to kiss ass in order to improve his draft stock. This is exactly who he is. Take him or leave him. And I just think that that type of edge and competitive fire is what makes him good. And I think that's a part of the generation in regards to it being a little unhinged and a little vulgar in their approach. And so it's fine. That doesn't bother me.
As a bonus question to that, coach, if you don't mind, wouldn't that scare like general managers and scouts seeing Shadeur's character in a way? Because I know you said someone's going to draft him, right? But you have to think that most teams will be kind of fearful or just questioned with his characters, what we've seen so far, because he just, in a way, entitled may not be the correct word, but
He's entitled. He's absolutely entitled, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I think he's absolutely entitled. No, I mean, these general managers, what's alarming is if a guy has substance abuse issues or has bad judgment in regards to getting arrested, like the Baker Mayfield situation. He got arrested over some petty stuff. And Baker Mayfield is immature, or he was immature. Baker Mayfield's made major strides.
Yeah.
But Shadeur Sanders carries himself like an adult. I don't think Shadeur Sanders is a guy that drinks or smokes. Shadeur Sanders is a guy that wants to be a pro and carries himself as such, in which he viewed himself as getting to that level his entire life. That's more of what I'm concerned about, is how serious does he take the game in regards to his preparation, his ability to read a defense, his fundamentals. What is his capacity to continue to develop? Those are the boxes that he checks. The competitive fire, believe it or not, scouts love that shit. They really do. There's a time and a place, and it's going to take a stable organization to wrap their arm around Shadeur and develop that trust, because he may be a kid that doesn't trust people easily, especially when his dad is, one of the best to ever do it. So you better come correct in trying to coach and show him the way. But if an organization is stable, it's going to be about the right fit. So is he going to? He's not going to drop to the second round.
No,
because you got to understand here, this isn't like a receiver or a DB. And the developmental process with quarterbacks is starting to shift. He's polished already, and he has a competitive fire. Like, what do we talk about with like the Daniel Joneses of the world? There's no it factor. There's nothing to him. He's got no pizzazz. He can't take the man to the huddle. Shadeur Sanders is not going to be intimidated by an NFL locker room like the Jameis Winston effect. They're just going to rally behind him, and I believe that stuff makes a difference. So I really don't think – I think that's like public perception from an outsider in regards to what general managers and scouts think. But I believe that there's a lot of Shadeur Sanders antics that NFL scouts really like, actually.
Okay. Well, there's one guy that I mentioned earlier that doesn't have any character issues whatsoever. He's very goofy guy off the field, and I really love him a lot, and that's Travis Hunter. He played extremely well against Colorado State. But I understand, Coach, you have some film as to why he's, your leading Heisman candidate. Is that correct, if I'm not mistaken?
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull that up for you. I got a couple pieces of film for us today. And the first one. And before we get into it, let's just take a look at Travis Hunter's stats on the season. Last week, he had 13 catches for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and a pass breakup. And on the season right now, he's got 30 catches for 342, 5 touchdowns, an interception, and 2 pass breakups. He's really dominating on the offensive side of the ball, playing way more snaps than he did last year, only in 3 games so far, and he has been absolutely electric. We're just going to pull some highlights from last season. I'm going to tell you some things that I'm a little concerned about moving forward, but what I really like and what he's really doing that is really just captivating on all cylinders. And we're getting better each week with this film stuff, so that's good. Right here, right? Good pass breakup, but if we actually look at this, right, he was beat off the line of scrimmage. Guy gets a clean release, doesn't really get his hands on him, and he was actually beat. However, he has great awareness, and the receiver's looking up, and when he looks up, he puts his arms up and is able to make a play, but he was beat. I do just want to say that. However, these are small things that he can get away with because the level of competition isn't great, especially with the Colorado State here. But when you let a guy in the Big 12 get a little bit of a step on you and the ball's thrown correctly, that's not going to be a pass breakup. Right here, I was amazed by that reverse pirouette, to just have the awareness to get out of that and turn a first down and to get a little more absolutely amazing right here. I saw this one live. He is at the bottom of the screen. The way he shakes this guy, gets open, makes it easy. I mean, you can't teach that. And just watching that again. I mean, look at this release. Ha!
Oh.
Boom. I mean, just easy touchdown. It is sweet. Right here, this interception was compelling because he looked like an offensive player running the route. Just took it, and basically when that ball's up in the air, it is his ball. And I believe that is his greatest attribute is his ball skills. Very rarely do you see a guy get an interception with the full head of steam to where he's catching it. It's like he's already running back the other way. Just really impressive interception there. And he doesn't get a lot of interceptions for someone that's as gifted in man coverage as him. Here, beating the guy downfield. Great catch, touchdown,
Easy.
routine. And this is just who Travis Hunter is, a bona fide playmaker. So last week, man, just doing it on both sides. 13 catches, high volume of targets. I believe he was targeted about 16 times. Only 3 times he was targeted and didn't come down with it. I love that metric of target to catch ratio. DB, it is taking a little bit of a back seat. I'm actually surprised that he gets as many snaps as he does on the offensive side of the ball, but he's a pretty sound tackler and he's so good after the catch. Great character. I just think that he checks off every single box. I do want to make this point as we transition out of this segment, talk about Colorado. I think they're a 6 to 7 win team. I initially said 8 to 9, then I went back, said 5 to 6. They're about a 6 to 7 win team. And we're going to talk about their matchup heading into this week. But all things considered, I think there's no way this guy doesn't win the Heisman. Tim Tebow, when he won the Heisman, they did not win that many games. That was the one down year in between his 4 years of Florida, in which they didn't go to a BCS bowl game. Lamar Jackson's team wasn't that great. Johnny Manziel had 3-4 losses. So there have been times in the past in which the Heisman doesn't always go to the best player on the best team. And I just think as good as he's been this season, that's his trophy to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, based off what you're saying, your team doesn't have to be, one of the top teams in the country to win the Heisman. The Heisman is a individual award, and if Hunter keeps this up offensively, defensively, no one else is doing it like him at this point in time. He's the only two-way college football player who's not only doing it but also succeeding in both roles. Like we discussed before, he definitely should chase the receiver money over the DB money when he gets into to the NFL. But overall, right now, he's been incredible for Colorado offensively, and Shadeur loves him. That's his number one target, even with all the transfers that with Webster and Jimmy Horn from last year as well. Even with all those weapons, he still tries to find Travis Hunter because he is dependable, and he's shown why he is the number one target at Colorado. And, as the film showed, even though there's times where he's going to get beat, his awareness and his speed will help him create plays on the defensive side of the ball as well. So shout out to Colorado. We'll talk about them more later on, Coach. But our first new segment of Coach's Corner we'll be introducing now every single week. I love that. I'm so excited for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Coach's Player Spotlight. No sponsor for this one yet, but we'll get there eventually. Coach, who is this week's Player Spotlight? Who do you have your eye on? Who impressed you this past weekend? Who is the guy that we'll be talking about today?
Well, I believe that quarterbacks are not made like they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
This kid is cut from a different cloth. It's in his DNA. And what I love about him is that he wasn't chasing the glamour, the spotlight, an opportunity to be a 3-year starter. He said, I'm going to go and sit, and I'm going to go do this the right way and go to a good school with a good culture and a good coach, and I'm going to go develop. Mm-hmm. And that's Arch Manning.
Ooh.
The 5-star prospect from Shadeur Newman High School in Louisiana, the same high school that all the Manning brothers and Odell Beckham went to. Okay. Went there, ripped it up. He broke Eli's career record for passing yards, Peyton's career record for passing touchdowns, 6'4", 225, and he decides to go to Texas and sit behind Quinn Ewers. Love the maturity in that decision. His family didn't let him do any media interviews in high school. They kept his Instagram private until he committed to Texas. And he actually opted out of being in the NCAA football game until they threw him a $60,000 bag 2 days before the game came out to be in the game. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is a really good quarterback, and I think he's probably going to be a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
However, Steve Sarkisian has done a good job of allowing Arch Manning to get snaps when necessary. And then Quinn Ewers went down last week against University of Texas San Antonio. And so Arch Manning stepped into the game, and this was the arrival of the young phenom. To me, he has this feel of being a generational quarterback. And I will just say this before we hop into the film room and show some of the things that he did. Archie Manning was actually a pretty athletic quarterback for the Houston Oilers and the New Orleans Saints. He was. If you watch some of his old highlights, you'll see him scrambling around. He played on some historically bad teams. But Eli and Peyton Manning are statues. They are not athletic at all. So to have the Manning DNA with some speed, it's like the speed skipped over a whole generation, and then it went to Arch. And to me, he's like the golden child of quarterbacks. He has that same feel when I was evaluating Andrew Luck as a prospect, in the fact that he's just smart, strong, good body type, big arm, mechanically sound, athletic. I see no flaws in the kid's game. And he already looks wise beyond his years now. So here we go. We're heading into Coach's film room, and I was so happy to see the unofficial or official arrival of the next Manning great.
Indeed. Honestly, he's been incredible, Coach. I'm so excited to see the film that you have for us here on Mr. Arch.
The Coach film room. All right. First of all, the celebration, amazing. Right here, we have an RPO. Okay. Two receivers at the top of the screen. He sees it, throws it. Perfect ball placement, throwing him open. One of his 5 total touchdowns last week. Here, rolling out. Great throw. He's playing with a ton of very good skill players as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I love about this throw, he just sits back and delivers this one on a rope. Let me fix this. He's just sharp. This is just a great throw. Way to deliver. Right at the top of the break. And he has some electric receivers. Right here. This was a big one. Guy has a ton of separation, but still great ball, great decision making. And so he has a great system around him. Good players, good coach. He presents a running threat. And we're going to see this again. Looking back at the guy. Ha ha! Oh, man. We've never seen a guy with the last name Manning do that.
Eli never had that, Coach. He never had that, I tell you.
And then here, he's got that juice. He's got that swag to him. Love the play design. And this is why Texas is so dangerous, because they could throw bubble screens and they got a host of guys that could take it to the house. So all things considered now, I mean, what we see is a team that I believe Texas is the best team in the country right now. Oh, yeah. They have a quarterback that is going to go in the first round. They have a good offensive-minded head coach, and they have a ton of talent on that team, and he isn't being rushed into being a starter. He's not a kid that needs money or is rushing his development process. The offense is designed nice, where there is an element of a run game, good RPOs, downfield throws. He's getting the proper development. He has all the traits. He's got the DNA, he's got the size, and he's got some uncanny athletic ability. And so all things considered, I don't know how much more we're going to see of him this season. And that wasn't a particularly impressive team. I will acknowledge that. But all things considered, having seen the sample size of Arch Manning, especially relative to the other quarterbacks coming up, dual threat guys that playing gimmicky offenses, I do think Dylan Raiola is definitely positioned to also be a very good NFL prospect. But him and Arch Manning, these guys are dime a dozen these days. And there's going to be an element of their pedigree, their background, where they played high school ball, that's going to determine their ability to transition to the next level. And he's just checking the boxes as the dynamics are beginning to change. Being a high school quarterback that presents the opportunity to be a very good NFL prospect, it's just not the same anymore. They're not growing on trees. So I know it when I see it. And let me tell you, Arch Manning's got it.
He
So
sure
that's
does.
my player spotlight. And we'll see if another guy pops up to me, but he's definitely doing some things.
Dang right. Yeah, I think we have to wait, what, 2 more years for him before he declares for the draft, or the earliest he can declare for the draft.
Next year. He could come out next year. He'd be
Yeah.
a redshirt sophomore.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So honestly, he's just someone that I definitely have my eye on because he's just so athletic. Like you mentioned multiple times, he's a Manning that we haven't seen since Archie, basically. And
Are you familiar with him prior to him going to Texas? Have you known who he was?
I recognize his name from from high school. Obviously being a Giants fan, Eli and all that stuff, his name was always associated with Eli and Peyton. So, but other than that, not much. I know there was the whole issue with no social media until he committed, and not being in the NCAA game until they offered him a bag. And I was just like, okay, is it his decision or is it the family's decision? But in the end, his family was just trying to protect him, and just raise him the best way possible. And what I like about most about Archie is, like you mentioned, he's doing it the right way. He went to a good school. He's willing to wait instead of going to a school where he would start immediately. He's developing the right way. He's doing the right things. Sarkisian has done a heck of a job with Ewers, and I have no doubt he'll do the same with Manning as well. So I'm super excited. He's someone I definitely have my eye on for the rest of the season. I'm not sure if Ewers will miss. He will miss this week, from what I've heard.
You got more Arch this week?
Yeah, we do, Coach. Yeah.
Go.
Oh man, I love it.
Love
Me
it.
too. Me too. Honest, I'm not sure who Texas plays this week. I will look it up right now as we speak. They play. Oh, Louisiana Monroe. So another weak team this weekend, but who cares? Arch is going to play, and it's going to be super exciting to see. So they do have Louisiana Monroe and then Mississippi State next the week after that. So that's going to be a big game as well. And then they have Oklahoma coming in after a bye week. So those 3 games will be pivotal. I don't think Ewers will miss any time past this upcoming weekend, but if need be, none of us will be complaining as the young Arch is from a small sample size.
I was going to say, right after the Red River rivalry, Texas is going to break into that SEC play. Not Oklahoma, but that real SEC. It's going to be interesting to see Texas start competing with some of those teams. So excited for that.
Yeah, to be exact, Georgia, Vanderbilt, and Florida are the 3 SEC teams that Texas will start playing starting October 19th. Georgia, question marks there. I will ask you about that later, Coach, if you don't mind, because I do have one question about Georgia that concerned me after what I saw from this past weekend. I don't know why we gotta talk about this because I'm a Giants fan, but it's ridiculous. But you know what? They're America's team, so why the heck not, right, Coach? The Dallas Cowboys. Oh man,
Yep.
it's crazy. Look, they had an outstanding week 1. They really did. But week 2, Coach, they took like a complete 180. They did not look the same against Cleveland whatsoever. If you guys didn't watch the game, the Cowboys did fall to the New Orleans Saints, and when I say they fell, they got beat really, really bad. The Saints just demolished them. Offense wasn't looking the same like they did against the Browns. The Saints put 44 on that Cowboys defense. Coach, what were your thoughts on this game? What went wrong? Was it offense and defense? Was there specific position groups or factors that contribute to this? What happened for this Cowboys team in week 2? Because this was not the same team we saw in week 1 whatsoever.
While Derek Carr has had no real postseason success, I believe he's a very good quarterback, and he has just hit his prime. 11 of 16, okay, really low attempts. Okay?
Really low.
Wow. 11 of 16 for 243 and 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr is playing really well, man. Playing really well this season. So good for him. I thought that's key point number one. Second thing, they ran the ball real well. And you know how I feel about the run game. Alvin Kamara had a buck 15 on the ground. I believe he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns as well. Of the exact number here. But what I also found interesting was that Jamal Williams also had 8 attempts, which was more than any other Cowboy, which, to my point exactly, is that the Cowboys just had no run game.
No.
And that's what it comes down to. They got nothing from Brandon Cooks in that game as wide receiver number 2. Jalen Tolbert is probably a wide receiver number 4. Although Brandon Cooks are probably best as a wide receiver number 3 at this stage of the game. Schoonmaker, the tight end, really had 6 catches, but he's not an explosive player for them. And the Cowboys threw the ball way too many times. That is just not their formula for success. The defense obviously struggled, but that's because the Saints could run the ball. And so once they start doing that, they had Rashid Shaheed looking like a monster. Okay, he had 96 yards receiving. He had 2 touchdowns, really explosive downfield play. Trayvon Diggs is still a gambling man, and so he gets beat from time to time. But no, to be honest with you, I just think the Cowboys offense lacks firepower. It is not the offense from 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know why the defense was getting dominated. Okay, the defense did not look good, but I will say that the Saints have some continuity within the building now, whereas the Cowboys, they've just been losing players over the last couple of years. And Dak Prescott's not a guy that you want trying to win games with his arm. And so between Daddle, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook still hasn't joined the party, and I think he's washed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I just don't. Granted, the NFC East is not a particularly good division, but as of today, I see the Cowboys as a 10-win team, the 10-7 team. So that's really just how I look at it. But we're still in week 2. That was in Dallas too. Oh, not a good look.
Yeah, the home opener too.
Yeah, home opener. Yeah. However, New Orleans is also an indoor team, though. I will say so. It kind of cancels out to a certain degree in regards to the fact that New Orleans is comfortable in that type of environment. But no, that is not an excuse. That was just a game, though, for the Cowboys where the stakes weren't particularly high. I know that they like those primetime high stakes games. But no, it just was not a good showing on their end. And they're going to have to commit to running the ball much more. And Zeke Elliott actually had a couple first down runs. He looked okay when he got it. I don't know why they ran more. They didn't run more. But when the Saints are explosive, how they were, and Alvin Kamara is going crazy, it's just like you're playing this keep from behind game. Oh, lastly, key point, man. 2 interceptions and a fumble. The game of turnovers. New Orleans dominated time of possession. They didn't turn the ball, or they only had 1 interception. That's clearly the recipe. They ran the ball and turned the ball over less. So Dallas isn't particularly explosive. And if you shut down CeeDee Lamb, more or less, you're going to have a shot. And that's what it looks like right now. But they have an easy division. And that's what this boils down to. The game doesn't really have that much value week 2. So I don't really think it matters that much, but kind of alarming that they got their ass whooped on their home field.
Kind of alarming, you say. I like how you put that because the average fan is like, oh no, the season's over. Which brings us to our other new segment on the show. It's called Chill or No Chill because, like Coach explained in the last episode, we tend to panic a bit too much when it's too early in the season. But this segment, we got 4 players / teams that I'm going to ask you, Coach, should we be panicking or just chillax and just calm the F down? The first team is the Dallas Cowboys, Coach. So after what we saw on Sunday, but from what we always also saw last week as well, should we be panicking about this Cowboys team or should we just chill?
Just chill. They can split one with the Eagles. They can beat the Commanders twice. They can definitely beat the Giants twice. A very easy division. They can win 10 games and still get to the playoffs in that 7th seed. I don't think they're particularly talented from an offensive personnel standpoint, but I see 10 wins as the sweet spot. but we're still early in the season. If they can get that run game going, they do play indoors. They have a lot of things in their favor. They do have good defensive personnel. The Saints are explosive, but the Saints are a streaky team. Game that they could definitely win early, but as the Cowboys just get more big games under their belt, they get rolling, they're going to be just fine. Also, CeeDee Lamb wasn't even in camp. Okay, so he's still getting his legs underneath him. I hope to God he doesn't get hurt, but all things considered, there's nothing to really be alarmed about at this stage of the game.
Okay. Another pivotal team that is worth mentioning is the Baltimore Ravens, coach. This was a team that acquired Derrick Henry this past offseason. This offense was supposed to be a juggernaut, especially in the run game as well. Zay Flowers' sophomore season, plus the return of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely at the tight end position. And this team is 0-2 after they lost to the Chiefs that opening week. And they lost to the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, this past weekend. Should we chill or no chill when it comes to this Baltimore Ravens team, coach?
You can chill, but you're on the verge of being a little worried. And I say that because the first game was a toss-up with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it appears as though the Chiefs just have their number. Lamar Jackson has to get over this hump. I compare them to the Celtics right now and how they were prior to the season, where analysts, Bostonians, they don't want to hear it anymore. It's like put up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that matters for the Ravens is winning the Super Bowl. That's really the territory that they're in now. And so they could be thinking ahead, and they have a little bit of a different roster now. They lost Patrick Queen, very explosive linebacker. I think that hurts them a little more than it was initially anticipated. So that stands out to me. But they haven't really got Derrick Henry going quite yet, and they've been throwing the ball a little too much. The Raiders are a team that are playing for all the marbles right now. And you always see this every year where teams that aren't really good will beat a good team early in the season. I think the Ravens are still trying to get it going. But no, not a big deal at all. They need to stop the run and run the ball a little more, which is always generally the case. They don't need Lamar Jackson throwing a high volume of passes. But I do think that the pressure cookers start to heat up a little bit. And why I think this matters is because that division's really good. And so if Cleveland can get hot and Joe Burrow, obviously it's taken a little bit for him to get rolling. And Pittsburgh's got a really good defense, but a little uncertainty at the quarterback position. But Fields has looked all right so far. Is that if they start off 0-4 or 1-3, is that division can get away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how they're playing. It's just that really competitive, even the AFC as a whole, and they're all going to beat each other up. And so I'm not alarmed quite yet. And they have philosophy, generally speaking, in regards to the fact that John Harbaugh is a really good coach. They are a very physical team. They have a strong culture, a lot of continuity. And so they're a team that I can see them winning their last game at the end of September, going 4-0 in the month of October. And then we head into Thanksgiving and the Ravens are like 6-3 trending up. You know what I mean? That's how. So it really doesn't matter at all. It's like weeks 1 through 4 are like feeling themselves out. It's really around weeks 5 to 11 where we begin to see who you are. And they haven't embarrassed themselves. It's not like they've gone away from Raven football. They've just thrown the ball a little bit, and perhaps they are conserving Derrick Henry for the long term.
Okay. I want to shift away from teams specifically to player-specific chill or no-chill selections here. And the first player I want to mention is Bryce Young, coach, who unfortunately got benched yesterday, according to Coach Dave Canales, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, by the way. Bryce Young was benched for Andy Dalton, who will start this week's game on Sunday. Coach, this whole Bryce Young situation, the team, the player specifically, should we be chill or no chill about this? Because honestly, for me, it is kind of sad to see him get benched because of the mess he's gone through his first 2 seasons in the NFL.
No chill.
Yeah. No chill.
This is a problem. Mm-hmm. This is a problem. They mortgaged the house to get him. They have no draft capital. Okay. How are they going to get better players? That's alarming. Okay. Bryce Young's incredibly undersized. Let's not forget They drafted him over CJ Stroud.
I know.
Gave up picks to get him. And in 17 games, you got 2 wins. No, excuse me. In
18 games.
19 games,
Yeah.
okay, you got 2 wins and 17 losses. Okay. You got last season, he had 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. In this season, he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet. Okay. They are looking horrible. He's already had 2 different head coaches. I don't really know what his X factor. He's had 3 head coaches.
2 last year, Frank Reich, and then the interim head coach, which played a factor because the offense changed with him, and then Canales this year.
Okay, even worse.
Yeah,
even worse. The personnel around him isn't great. O-line is getting him killed. But what stands out to me about Bryce Young is, and it's why you have to watch out for those Alabama quarterbacks, it's that he plays with a bunch of talented players. You don't really know how much of it is him. With that being said, I don't know what his X factor was. He wasn't like Johnny Manziel to me or even Kyler Murray. He didn't really show me any of those things. So I don't know. I was never even buying the hype. You feel bad for the kid, but what is Carolina doing? Just benching him. You want to something funny? I got on a Bleacher Report notification today that they worked out Cam Newton. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I'm not lying. And so if you want to go for the fans in the stands approach, so be it. I mean, he knows the building. He knows how to do it. He can definitely step in. If you need him to be a fall guy, he can do it. I think Cam Newton would be a great clipboard holder. Honestly, I think he'd be a great backup in a Jameis Winston fashion. I believe he does have something to offer, and he can help a team with a good team that's ready to win now. He could help them if they needed a quarterback as like a stopgap player to fill a void for a short period of time. But the fact that the Panthers are going to try and lean on him again, or just all the decisions that they made. Listen, man, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Bad organizations make stupid decisions. And this is the byproduct of that. And unfortunately, what's a seemingly good young man who does the right thing, he has no real character issues, humble kid. It's unfortunate that you got to see the kid go through this, but this is just a byproduct of a lot of incompetence. And this is what's going on in a lot of these organizations in the NFL. You got a lot of guys just don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, the players suffer. And what's even worse is that when the guy's health is in jeopardy. And that's what's happening to Bryce Young. And so I believe that they saved him before he just continues to get destroyed and loses all his confidence. And they might as well try to trade him or do something, because I don't think he's a long-term solution. However, I don't even think Bryce Young is worth a 3rd or 4th round pick in the open market. And that's the thing about it. He's just not that good. If Justin Fields is worth a 6th round pick, and I think Justin Fields is actually a better quarterback and was a better prospect than Bryce Young personally. So with that being said, it's just like, I don't know, the guy's worth a bag of Skittles. So yeah, it's time to panic. I'm not on that one.
It's just that, like you mentioned, the surrounding pieces around him. There was no optimism with the people around him. I mean, their best free agent acquisition this past offseason was Deontay Johnson, who was exiled from Pittsburgh. There's a season where he didn't even catch a touchdown for the Steelers that one year. So it's just like, if your best free agent acquisition and your best weapon on that offense is Deontay Johnson, you have big concerns. Xavier Legette, who they drafted in the 2nd round, he's been non-existent whatsoever for Carolina. The offensive line is completely terrible. Like, there is no supporting them whatsoever. Like, they just suck. The running game is non-existent too. Chuba Hubbard is their starter. I know Jonathan Brooks, their other 2nd round pick. He's
Miles Sanders still there too.
That is correct. He's not 3rd string. Oh, he's 2nd string now, but originally 3rd string before the whole Jonathan Brooks injury. So it's just, the Carolina thing is such a mess, coach, and the fact that the fall guy had to be young, it was unbelievable. And the owner can go, F himself, because he's been terrible. He needs to sell the team, because at this point, I feel bad for him. Like, it's really not, we haven't seen what he can do, because this team just sucks. And that's straight up.
He's not that good though. I think we got to be realistic about that. I don't think Bryce Young is that good. And I think that the fact that he was the number one overall pick and they gave up so much to get him really just adds to it. And it makes it a lot worse than it really is, which is unfortunate.
I feel like if he goes to a different team, at least get him some help, and then we'll see. As of right now, Coach, I'm not arguing with you whatsoever. He hasn't shown anything, but I do believe that it's more of a supporting cast than him. And you mentioned Alabama quarterbacks, and we have another one to discuss as well for our final player of Chill or No Chill. And I just want to bring up real quick. There are 4 Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL that are notable right now. Mac Jones, he's a backup. Jalen Hurts, he's 2-9 in his last 11 games.
Oh, wow.
Bryce Young, benched. And Tua, CTE. Just kidding. No, I'm not. I take it back. Take it back. However, it is a bit of concern. And Tua Tagovailoa is our last player on Joe No Show to discuss, Coach, because that hit he took. And it wasn't even a hit. It wasn't even DeMar Hamlin's fault. He just ran into his arm, Tua did, instead of sliding. And he was so still for like a second with his hands in the air. And that's when you and I know it was like, okay, this is a bad injury for Tua. I think this is 3rd or 4th concussion in the past couple of years. Coach, for his health and for the team as a whole, is this a chill or no chill situation when it comes to Tua Tagovailoa?
No chill, for sure. I was living in South Florida the year the Dolphins were vying to get Tua, tank for Tua. That was a real thing. I was real close to that Dolphins organization, coaching at St. Thomas Aquinas, and just knowing people in the Dolphins building and knowing that they were really excited to get him potentially. Things worked out and he ended up falling to them. And he's had some bright spots, although he struggled with Brian Flores initially. Anytime you put a rookie quarterback with a defensive minded head coach, doesn't really go well. And then he was saved by Mike McDaniels. Mike McDaniels put a ton of talent on the perimeter for him, and they have a stellar run game. And in a similar fashion to what Lincoln Riley does to the quarterback position and simplifying the decision-making process and just making it very easy for a quarterback to be successful, he was able to get the most out of Tua, making quick decisions and being accurate. He doesn't really throw the ball downfield particularly well. He doesn't have a strong arm, but he doesn't necessarily beat himself. But you wonder at times if he has enough pizzazz to help them get over the hump. However, when I look at the Dolphins organization holistically, all these first round exits, they haven't won a playoff game in over 20 years. They struggle immensely in December and January. And last year, they were 1-5 against playoff teams. However, Tua was incredibly effective. He had great passing numbers, and they are running the ball incredibly well. So there's a lot of bright spots. However, some would say that Tua is the reason that they can't get over the hump. And they could probably play a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. But why this is concerning is because Tua is a young quarterback that is promising. We can nitpick him, but he's definitely a good player. He's been a Pro Bowler and he's pretty accurate. He's had some success in the league. Okay. And they like him in that building. He's a good teammate. And the fact that his career could potentially be over, he definitely has to sit down with his family and consider if he wants to still play football, which just puts into account how dangerous the game of football is and just evaluating the long-term future of the game as a whole, whether we want to increase the width of the field or change the structure of the helmet. There's a handful of different things you can do to make the game more safe. But his career could end prematurely. So the Dolphins, this is really like a put up or shut up type of year for them. And they have a lot of money being spent on all of these players. And so they're not going to have this window for much longer because they're going to begin losing players and not having money to spend. So they were able to sign Tyler Huntley off the practice squad, who's been a Pro Bowl quarterback who has filled in for Lamar Jackson. However, they don't do well in December and January, but he's going to get about 2.5 months to warm up. Who's to say if Tua is going to even return? But I do think they have the pieces in place that if he can get acclimated, they can do all right. And perhaps if they can stay above 500, Tua can step back in. However, this Tua era may be over. And that's unfortunate because with all the skilled players they have around, who knows if the Dolphins are going to be able to get the most out of this team that's been constructed. They also have OBJ, who is on the PUP list, who will probably be coming back in a couple of weeks here. And so I think that they are still positioned to do well, and they could sneak into that 7th seed. But we will see. But it's just an unfortunate case of events. And this was the year for him where he really had to display who he is. And he's gotten hurt a lot. And so, beyond anything else, his development is getting compromised with just the lack of reps. And so, I believe that we've probably seen the best of him, and his future is really uncertain.
Straight up, yes or no question, Coach. Should he retire?
Yeah, he should.
Yeah, same here. I agree. Just the injuries, the head injuries are no joke, Coach. And CTE is definitely, one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue when it comes to football, especially for those who suffer concussions a lot, like Tua has. And it also sad to see as well, just to see he's a talented quarterback. He could sling the deep ball. He has great weapons around him, and this Dolphins team, they need him. And without him for the next 4 games, because he was placed on injury reserve yesterday or the day before, which means either they'll roll with Tyler Huntley, like they sign off the practice squad, like you mentioned, Coach, or they go with Skylar Thompson, who, let's be honest, isn't the most. Yeah. Hey, you said it. You said it straight up, not me. I was trying to be nice about him. But we saw what Thompson could do in that playoff game against Buffalo a couple years ago, which was absolutely nothing. But the point being, he's not the best option. And the next 4 games for the Dolphins consist of the Seahawks, Titans, Patriots, and the Colts. So hopefully all winnable games, but it all depends on who they play at quarterback. If it's Huntley, I'm confident. If it's Skylar Thompson, I'm sorry. I don't think they'll get the job done, but we'll see who they start on Sunday. No official word yet on the Miami Dolphins side who will start at quarterback this Sunday, but we shall see as they head off to Seattle to play the Seahawks. So, all right, that'll do it for Chill Don't Chill. Was fun, Coach. I appreciate that. All right, game of the week. Baylor, Colorado is what we decided on, Coach. So what are the keys for the Buffaloes who take on a Baylor Bears team that they're a pretty gritty team, if I'm not mistaken, right, Coach?
They're 2-1. They beat Tarleton State and Air Force. They lost to number 11 Utah second week of the season. Since Dave Aranda got there, he is 25-26. First year 2-7. Second year 12-2. Third year 6-7. Fourth year 3-9, which was last season. He did fill in for Matt Rule. Matt Rule rebuilt them after the Art Briles era. Okay, so Baylor was trending in the right direction. Unfortunate that Matt Rule left, but he left them for the NFL job. Now, Dave Aranda is a defensive mastermind. Okay, did really good things at Wisconsin and LSU, was the architect of the LSU defense, I believe, when they won the national championship with Joe Burrow, which is how he landed that job at Baylor. But he was a guy that was on the radar for being the next great head coach. He's also a guy that I could absolutely see being a defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's a tactician. When I was coaching defensive football, I was studying what he did, and he's very fiery, but he's very cerebral. Like you talk to him, you're like, okay, this guy's just wired differently. I love the intensity that he brings. I think Baylor is very gritty. They do some 3 high safety stuff. They've struggled the last couple of years due to the instability at the quarterback position. Anyway, where they're at now is they're a gritty team. They do some solid things defensively, but they are just playing musical chairs at quarterback. DeQuan Finn, he's a 6th-year player. He came from Toledo. He's more of a dual threat. He got hurt, and so they went to Rob Sawyer, who's a transfer from Mississippi State. He played 3 years there, played a little bit last year, played in 12 games at 4 starts last year. Baylor right now is averaging 167 yards on the ground, 29 points per game, 213 yards passing. They're okay. For Colorado now, this is a game they have to win. I'm going to be honest with you. Last year, Colorado probably lost every game that they should have lost to teams that are just in a competitive division that are familiar with each other. And even though Colorado had talent at the skill players, all those teams in the Pac-12 were just much tougher, bigger, with guys that have been properly developed. So there was no shot. This Big 12 transition for Colorado is much better for them in regards to the players that they have and the fact that all those teams are around the same level. So with that being said, this is the first game now where You can have a toss-up in regards to Baylor's a good program coached by a coach that's done some stuff. If Colorado can go and win this game coming off of last week, they're definitely going to be like, all right, Colorado's a real team, and they're able to handle the pressure and win the games they're supposed to win. The rest of the Big 12 is going to be pretty tough as they get into the nitty-gritty of the schedule. Like the UCFs, it's going to be a dogfight. The Cincinnati's, Texas Tech, like Utah, those aren't going to be easy games. Like some of them more than others, but each one of these games are going to be tough. And so in order to justify what Coach Prime is building, he has to win this game. I'm going to be honest with you. Losing to Baylor is not a good look because the schedule is only getting harder relative to what Baylor did last year and the fact that they don't have a bona fide guy, not even at the quarterback position, but really anywhere on that offense. They haven't played anybody this year. They played Utah kind of tough, but Colorado has the best quarterback and the best player in college football. No excuse here, man. And again, they haven't Baylor's not doing anything particularly well, rushing the ball, throwing the ball, or even on the defensive side of the ball. And so all things considered, Colorado's going to have to win this game to really keep the media on their side, because if they lose this, the pressure is going to add up. You thought the Nebraska game was one thing. It's like, well, at least they're coached by a quarterback who's up and coming and an NFL coach. Well, like this is different here. Baylor does not really have anything to write home about. I can sit here and tell you Dave Aranda is a tactician, but the record the last 2 years indicates that if he's not good in 2 more years, he's going to get canned. And so I can stand my ground on discussing what I like about him, but he's not really getting the job done anymore either. And so Baylor is at somewhat of a crossroads. And so they're probably struggling with recruiting. And so do they have a guy that can slow down Travis Hunter, and are they going to have the ability to get after Shadeur? I don't think they will. And so just discussing my Colorado Buffaloes, this is their matchup for the week. And I believe in a weird case of events that this is a must win for them.
Okay. Yep. They will face off each other for the first time since 2010. The Baylor Bears beat Colorado in 2010, 31-25. Baylor has won 3 of the last 4 meetings, yet Colorado still leads the series as a whole 9-7. I will say, Coach, it might get messy on Saturday. Added there is a 90% chance of rain. 44 degrees is what the weather will look like that night. So it's gonna be, it might get messy, Coach, on that field. It might get messy. So the run game might need to be a factor more than we like for the Buffaloes, but we shall see.
Can't run the ball.
Yeah, that run game. I know I think Micah something ran for 65 yards for the Buffaloes on Saturday against Colorado State, but that running game is still a mess. So we shall see what happens there this Saturday. All right, everyone gather around. All right, let's take a knee. All right, it's time for the post-game speech from Coach. Coach, what do you got? What are you going to send us off with as we head off for this episode?
I got a question for you. If you know the answer, just let me know.
Sure.
Who do you think leads the NFL in passing right now? Do you know? What quarterback leads the NFL in passing yards?
Brock Purdy.
Okay. Over, under 750?
Under.
Under. My man, you know your stuff. Okay. 2 weeks into the season right now, Brock Purdy is the leading passer in the NFL with 550 yards in 2 games. If we look at some of the numbers amongst quarterbacks throwing the ball, they have been inflated throughout the course of the last decade. And one would say that the NFL has become a passing league. The numbers are down in the first 2 weeks of the season, the lowest they've been in the last 7 years. The leader in touchdown passes 2 games in is Derek Carr with just 5. Listen to this. We have Derek Carr 1, Baker Mayfield 2, Sam Darnold 3, Kyler Murray 4. Who in their right mind would have predicted that 2 weeks into the season that those would be the leaders in touchdown passes? Okay. I say that to say throughout the course of the last decade, teams have been throwing the downfield quite a bit, while defensive coordinators have began catching up. And it's using 2 high safeties. And what that does is you can roll safeties pre-snap and it clouds the reads. And we obviously have seen more defensive backs on the field with the nickel. But when you start with 2 high, it just makes that the middle of the field a lot harder to attack. It's very different from having one high safety where you can attack the seams and put guys in a bind, okay, with those over routes and those, obviously, like I said, those seams and those deep ends, which are what made Rob Gronkowski and the Patriots so effective, made the Cooper Kupps of the world as a slot machine so effective for such a long period of time. But now with the two high safeties, it's just changing the course of the game. Also, the yards per attempt is down quite a bit. And so we are beginning to see the teams that are pretty successful right now returning to the run game, like I have been mentioning the last couple weeks. So, with that being said, what I'm interested to see moving forward is if NFL offenses are going to figure this out, if we're going to see a transition into more 12 and 21 personnel moving forward, and if a new team is going to emerge as the top team in the NFL. Right now, we still don't know. Some of the usual suspects are making noise. The Chiefs obviously still appear to be a threat. I believe that everyone still sees the Ravens, the Bengals, the Bills, the Eagles, the Niners as the top teams. But it's going to be exciting moving forward and just seeing if the NFL transitions into being more of a defensive game and perhaps throwing the ball downfield is no longer the recipe for success. That's what I'm looking forward to this week, not just in the pro game, but in the college game, as I'm seeing teams that do a lot of motion, play under center, have a nice mix of run and pass. Those are the teams that are successful. Seeing this trickle down from the pro to the college level, seeing the use of two high safeties and just seeing how the year turns out. It's an ongoing investigation for me and the main thing that I'm going to be looking forward to. So let's see if we have any 400-yard passers in the NFL this week. That's the one thing that I'll be looking for. All things considered, now we're starting to understand who's who. And so I expect this to be the first exciting week of the 2024 season.
Already. Passing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. In 2019, it was 105. In 2020, it was 110. Same thing for 2021. 2022 went down to 105. 2023 had 86 passing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. And so far, through the first 2 weeks, well, after the first 2 weeks were official for this year, 69 passing touchdowns thrown by all 32 teams combined. So defenses doing a heck of a job. Offenses, though, they're struggling a little bit. And the big names weren't even mentioned on that passing touchdown list that you just discussed, Coach. No Mahomes, no Lamar, no Josh Allen. None of those names are on there. So, yeah, it's been a very interesting NFL season, whether it was injuries or just not random, but I'll just say random just to say it. Random players being on top of the leaderboard for statistics all around. But overall, football is full of surprises, whether in the college game or the professional game, and that's what we love so much about that. And with that said, Coach, thank you for that speech. And that'll do it for Coach's Corner here on the 3rd and 10 podcast. We host this thing every week. Coach Woodson, as always, it's an honor to have you every week, Coach, and for you to take the time out of your day to do this with us. It's, like I said, an honor and a blessing to have you. So you guys can follow Coach. His social media is linked right there on the screen. You can follow me at Nathan_Nguyen24. Coach, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy this weekend. I hope Colorado comes out with another win against Baylor, so we have more stuff to talk about next week. And those Cowboys, well, they can. Who cares? I don't care about Dallas. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Coach's Corner. Until then, you can check us out for clips throughout the week from me and Coach as well. Until then,